Welcome back, Commanders. My name is Commander Hobbs, and I am extremely happy that you're here for my third Flight Assist Off training video. This is part of the beginner series that I'm doing. This is video 3, or Proficiency 3 of 5. If you want to know a little bit more about how I divide up Flight Assist Off training, please check out the first 2 videos. Or if you're curious about some of the exercises that you see here, and you're not quite sure what I'm referencing, please check out those videos as well. I've designed these to be sequential in nature, so we're going to be referencing some of those exercises that we did back then in the other videos. For today's training, we're going to do things a little bit different. Usually I introduce a conceptual lesson in the beginning, and then we go and do some exercises. The conceptual lesson for this proficiency level, the middle proficiency level, Proficiency 3, is actually so critical to tying everything together, and it's sort of intended to be that kind of aha moment that I wanted to really give it justice time-wise. And so since I'm running at like 36 minutes and some change on this video, I didn't want to have to squeeze that in and then not have that information really transmitted. So since there's less exercises that we have to do in Proficiency 4, I'm going to go ahead and put that at the beginning of Proficiency 4, and this video will just focus on exercises for Proficiency 3. Also, it works out kind of nice because it's going to give you a good 2 weeks to get these exercises down before we move on to that critical piece of the lesson. So then with that out of the way, what are we focusing on today? Today we're going to be doing a couple different things. I am going to hold true to my statement in Proficiency Level 2 where I said I'm going to disable your primary thruster. That's not for all the exercises today, but it is for a couple of key exercises right in the middle of our lesson that we're going to be using 0 primary thruster on, and I hope that you're going to like those exercises. I love doing that kind of stuff, and it's really good for you, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. Okay, let's get on with the exercises. Remember those 2 key concepts that we always keep loaded in our mind when we're flying Flight Assist Off. Number 1, use minimal input rather than overcorrecting, and number 2, be aware of your speed and know your vector at all times. Our first exercise today is at a Coriolis Station, so find a Coriolis Station. Looks just like this. You can see the mail slot where the ships are coming out right now. On the side of the Coriolis is this square. And we're going to approach the square, and we're basically going to tether to the center of it. Tethering, as we saw in the first exercise of Proficiency 1, is when we kind of produce that imaginary tether in the front of our ship connected to something in front of us. So we're going to keep the center of this square in the center of our display or our canopy, and we're going to lock to it, and we're effectively going to rotate with the station. You'll know as soon as you get that tether established because you'll have to give less inputs on your strafe, your correctional thrusters, and you'll mainly be using your primary thruster to hold you in an orbit, as you can see here. So we've already done this before in another lesson, so what makes this different? We are going to go into this trench here, the beginning of your trench exercises on Coriolis stations. We're going to go into this depression, and we're going to hold as best we can. Of course, I recommend doing all these exercises in a stock Sidewinder, but you can do these in many other ships. It's just that with the stock Sidewinder, you can really get deep into the trench so that you are fully in the trench with your ship, especially in this version of the exercise. So once you've found a stable point, let's go ahead and back out, and we're going to tether again to the center of that square. Once you've got this stabilized, pick left or right, and we're going to go ahead and bank 90 degrees to that direction. Stabilize again, and we're going to do the same thing on the trench just above this direction. Why is it so important that we turn to the 90 degrees? Because if you look at the station, how it's rotating from the external perspective, we are rotating in a completely different manner on this angle. So on this side, one of the sides will be more difficult than the other for you. It'll be less stable for you, and you'll have to do more micro adjustments. So become comfortable with both of those. You don't have to spend a lot of time doing this exercise. This is just kind of a starter for you to get in the trench on the Coriolis, and we're going to be doing much more complicated trenching exercises later. If you end up hitting the wall during this exercise, please don't despair. That's normal when you're learning how to do this. Just back out safely and tether again. Our next exercise deals with an orbit station. So find a station that looks like this. It's got a habitation ring on it with a nice arm, actually 2 of them, and we're going to be using those in a second. I want you to approach the lit track that's here on the inner part of the orbit station. This is going to give us a little bit of a guide for when we're starting this exercise. I call this threading. We're not going to be threading initially, we're just going to be kind of lining up on the top of this thing, as close as you can get. You can even use flight assist on if you want here to zero out your speed. What we're trying to do is figure out which way the station is rotating. So you can see the ring coming towards us now. Go ahead and get into position just like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to increase our speed a little bit, probably into around 50 or 60. Right now, what we're trying to do is just to follow the ring around. You really don't need to use much primary thruster at all. I have mine zeroed out right now. You can use your strafe thrusters, your vertical strafes mainly, to get you around this ring and to avoid the obstacles. You'll continue around the ring, following the station around, even without the use of the primary thruster. You'll see the pitch that I'm at on this ring right now. When I don't use the primary thruster, I end up bleeding off speed a little bit each time I go over these obstacles. I'll show you how to counteract that later. Once you've got this down, what we're going to do is we're going to take an arm of this Coriolis station and we're going to approach it and go towards the base. And we're still going the same direction around the orbit station, but now we're going to have a slightly compressed circumference on the circle that we're following around the orbit that we're producing. And this is going to introduce us to our threading exercises. You can do this first threading as slow as you need to do it. What we're going to do is go to the left. We're not really using our primary thruster here much. As you can see, once again, mine is zeroed out. And we're going to go back to the right. As you get better and better at these, you get faster and faster and faster and more accurate. You will notice that you'll still run into things from time to time. So please, once again, don't get discouraged if you happen to clip a pipe or if you misgauge that gap. The more work you put into this threading exercise and the next threading exercise I'm about to show you, the more it will pay off for you in the trenches that we're going to do in Proficiency 4, in our combat positioning that we're going to talk about in Proficiency 4 and Proficiency 5. And it will really help you dictate the position of your ship. In Flight Assist Off, every input counts massively. Every input from your mouse and keyboard, from your controller, from your HOTAS, whatever you're using to fly with, everything you do matters so much in Flight Assist Off. So it's important to be able to minutely dictate where your ship is at any given time, and more importantly, to have awareness of where your ship is. With this specific exercise, try to get your speed up a little bit more. Try to keep it above 100 when you're on the top here, preferably above 150 when you're on the top track. And as you dip down, it's going to get a little bit slower naturally. And just try to keep it kind of in the 100 range when you're doing your threading. And don't forget that you can skip, it's natural to skip every other thread, especially when you're going at this speed. If you get into a situation where you need to slow down a little bit, go ahead and slow down, reestablish your vector, and continue the thread. Whether you're just starting with Flight Assist Off or whether you've been flying Flight Assist Off on and off for years, doing some of these exercises when things are coming at you, particularly things with mass, and getting hit by them can be discouraging. So remember that when something like that happens, that is what's going to make you better. When that station hits you, that will make you better because you will find a way to make it not hit you the next time. You just have to be persistent, and remember that everyone goes through experiences just like you're experiencing right now, so just keep with it and you'll be fine. The next exercise, same station, same ring. We're just on the interior part of the habitation ring. You can see the arm is up here. We don't really need to worry about it because thankfully Frontier attached it to the edge of the ring. Very important thing to note, on the first part of this exercise, the station lights are coming towards us, so get into that same position. Feel free to use the track if you want to start your run. I'm just going to go down and start it from the base. Don't forget to make sure that you have a good grasp of the path that you're traveling before you start doing too many quick threads in this exercise. Once you're comfortable with a slow speed around this ring, I'm going to speed it up just a little bit more, bring it into that 60 to 70 range, somewhere in there, and you can play with the speed as you want as you're going around the ring, but just make sure that you initially get this path set in stone for yourself before you start threading in between these pylons. And if you're starting out and just able to do one pass through and then you have to reset, that's great. Just keep that, work on it, and eventually you'll be able to thread between them with ease. Once you've smoothed out that moderate speed threading, we are going to make one slight adjustment that's going to change everything. That's right, we're going to go the opposite way. So I'm not sure if Frontier had this in mind when they designed the orbital velocity of these rings, the rate that they're spinning, but they happen to be the perfect speed to be just under the max speed of a stock Sidewinder. So that allows us to do a positioning here and make the slightest gains, even though we're at full speed right now at 220. We're not making much ground, and we're doing a lot of corrections, and at this point your ship is going to be really angry with you, which of course makes sense if you let go of your controls, because you'll fly right into the habitation ring. I want you to notice a few things when you're on this track. Number one, you're at full speed or close to full speed, and when you're at full speed, you are handling different. Your ship is going to handle quite a bit different, and so you're really going to have to force this thing around this ring to make gains. And what's worse is when you get further out, like I just positioned myself, you are going even faster around the axis of the station. So you're going to make even less gains, and your speed is going to become more critical that you keep it up there. Also notice the position of my nose. It's slightly into the ring instead of pointed up. This allows me to get a better visual about what I'm actually doing. But more importantly, it allows me to combine the use of the primary thruster and the vertical strafe thruster to make something much more responsive. We'll thread once more to the left, and then we're going to change our position one last time to do a final piece of this exercise. Okay, so roll 180 degrees. Remember to stabilize your path before you start doing any threads in this position. I'm going to do one thread and then I'll move on to show you a position that makes this path that we're traveling a lot easier to manage. Up until now, around the rings, at least around this external ring, we've been using mainly our primary thruster to propel us around and our vertical thruster to stabilize us, and we have to use a lot of our vertical thruster to do that. I want to show you that the further you point your nose in to the ring, the less micro corrections you will eventually have to do with the vertical thruster. This is because the primary thruster takes over the position or the need for that balance. The further we point our nose in, the closer we get to a tethering exercise, in which we only really need to use the primary thruster. So the more our nose points towards the station axis, that's the center of where we're rotating, the easier it becomes to manage those positional thrusters. This is going to become a critical concept when we get into combat positioning and how tethering actually can relate to combat positioning, which we'll get to in our conceptual lesson for Proficiency 4. But right now, just play around with this concept, point your nose down, keep your speed up on your primary thruster, and see what you can do and play around with it. If that was a little bit complicated, don't worry, I'm going to have a great animation to explain how this all relates together in the next video for Proficiency 4, as I mentioned earlier. So the last piece of this station, the last thing we're going to do in this station is a quick reverse tethering exercise. So I want you to nose in to the habitation module, or the habitation ring rather, find a building, a piece of grass, a citizen, if there is such a thing that I haven't seen yet, and lock onto it, tether onto it. You're going to be using your reverse primary thruster almost exclusively in this exercise. Yes, this is 180 degrees exactly from where we were in the first proficiency lesson when we did our normal first tethering exercise on the exterior of the habitation ring. So it's very much familiar to you, except for that now we're using the reverse thruster. You'll notice that it's a little more touchy in some cases. Mine is definitely more touchy because my reverse thruster range is not equivalent to my forward thruster range. I have less granularity on my reverse thruster because my 0% throttle is at 25% of my throttle stick. So, but anyway, you might have just as much granularity in your reverse as your forward. So play around with this, try to lock into a feature, let yourself slip off to the side a little bit, play around with your orbit, and enjoy using that primary thruster because you are about to turn it off completely. A quick note to all the commanders out there, that goes from students, apprentices, masters, and veterans to flight assist off. If you have an exercise that deals with an orbit station that you feel really helped you and I haven't covered it yet, please link it in the comments below. Just post a quick comment or do a video would be amazing, and I love seeing the different ways that commanders come up with to train themselves. If you've seen my last video, the Proficiency 2 video, I did a little soapbox on why I believe it's important to train without the primary thruster with some exercises. And I promised that I would turn off your primary thruster in Proficiency 3, this video. And so here we go. You are going to find a marvelous outpost, much like the one that's in front of us right here. Doesn't matter which outpost it is, we're going to be using a static landing pad. We need something that's not moving, and we need a station that is not rotating. The work that you put in on the exercise that you're about to see is going to define how the next proficiency goes for you. The more work you put into this, the more work you put into isolation of certain thrusters, specifically the ones that we're doing right here, you are going to notice a big improvement in all applications of flight assist off. So after you've docked and gotten ready to launch, remember, during this exercise, we're only using our strafes and our positional thrusters, our pitch, our yaw, and our bank. If you get to the point during this that you feel like you're overwhelmed or you're spinning out of control or you just can't get to where you need to get to, pause and start again. You will get this. Take off from the landing pad using only your vertical thruster. Position yourself and let yourself float a little bit out from the station. Once we get about 4K out, we're going to pitch either up or down. I am going to pitch up, and we're going to put the station in the center of us so that it's directly below us, basically. and we're going to execute the opposite vector. So in my case, that's down, so strafe down. And we're going to come to about 60, 70, somewhere in there. And then we're going to let it go. Pitch down to check your vector. We are indeed going towards the station. And pitch down a little bit more, and we're going to add some momentum to this. So in order to do that, we used our up vertical thruster. So we're going to drift towards the station, and we're going to navigate around the station without the use of the primary thruster. So in order to do that, we need to be able to see where we're going, or to be able to see where we need to go and then make the correction. So I have TrackIR, so I'm going to use it to look up a lot during this video, or during this specific exercise, or look to the side if I need to execute a vector change to the side. You can lock, without TrackIR, if you don't have TrackIR, you can lock your view to about a 20% inclination, or sorry, 20 degree inclination, so that you can see just above you, and that's the vector that you're going to be using to be able to traverse this station, or the exterior, rather, of the station. This might remind you slightly of the bonus exercise in one of the previous videos where we traverse the asteroid field looking straight up through our canopy. It's a little bit the same, except for that now we're able to use all of the other thrusters and the positional pieces to come into a harmony, which basically produces a vector for us. So we're using all of the tools available to us, minus the primary thruster, forward or back, to be able to produce our vectors, to be able to steer around this thing. You might notice as you're doing this that your craft becomes uncontrollable, that you are warbling kind of about space and spinning in a weird way. If that happens, don't feel bad about putting flight assist on for right now. The key, what I want you to focus on, is to be able to do a track around this thing once. So whatever station you're dealing with, move around it once. That's a good first step.
Boarding permission granted.
The next piece is docking without the use of the primary thruster. Keep in mind that every single action that you perform on your stick, every minute movement will translate massively in flight assist off. So everything needs to be tight. You're either recovering from something or you are taking advantage of something. So work to take advantage of more things than you're recovering from. That concept is never more clear as it is in an exercise like this, when you have to pre-plan your vector coming in for a landing. Use all of the skills that you have gained and use all of the patience that you can muster to produce this exercise, to be able to do this on call. If you can get to that point before Proficiency 4, you will notice a massive increase in your flight assist off skill, and you'll be able to position yourself at will. An exercise like this can be done with any ship that accepts a medium pad, so bring your entire fleet and test out all of your ships. Test out your different drives and see how they react during this exercise. I'm not sure if you can hear the creaking of my ship as the stresses of a 1G planet are placed onto it, but this is Planetary Training 1G. The flight corrections that we need to perform for flight assist off around a 1G planet, so that's anything from 0.8G to like 1.2G, they're a little bit different than what we've done before with the low G planets, the 0.1 to 0.3, right? So what is it? It's, as you would expect, the vertical thruster is quite a bit different. In fact, I'm firing mine about once a second as I'm skimming the surface here. Remember, while you're in the influence of a planet's gravity, the most efficient that your ship can be is on a flat plane. Once you get nose down or side down, like I am here, you become slightly less efficient. You can see here that even with maximum strafe left, I can't keep a steady altitude. In the low gravity planet, if you remember, we did a 90-degree nose down exercise. With higher gravity planets, you can do less and less of a degree. Even with full reverse thruster, I can only hold about a 55-degree angle. Remember to try to keep the terrain analyzer up with these skimming exercises. If you lose it, just let the planet take you down a little bit further and gain it again. Remember to refrain from using your primary thruster when it's really not needed. Use it generally only when you're redirecting your vector, as I'm doing here, or when you need to fix an error that's occurred. Landing on a 1G or close to 1G planet is pretty simple. You just come to stop as you usually would and let the planet take care of the descent for you. All in all, pretty equivalent to what we did for the training for low gravity planets. Just remember to practice this a little bit because in the future you will most likely use it. I'll do a short video on higher gravity planets a little bit later in the series. We don't really see those as much as we see these and low gravity, but remember to practice them and you'll be fine. With the addition of the camera suite, we now have an extra tool available to us to train with. It is the Detached Camera, or the Lock World Camera. So what you're going to do is find a low gravity planet. It's very important. Find a low gravity planet, position the camera behind you, and detach it. So what we're going to be doing is taking advantage of the fact that the detached camera, or the Lock World Camera, will follow you once it's reached its extent. When you're doing this exercise, make sure that your craft is pointed away from you at all times so that you don't get reversed. Once your craft starts to point towards you or you roll too far, go ahead and pop out of external camera and start again. The main goal of this exercise is to be able to visualize what's going on with your craft when you're inputting commands to all of your thrusters. Also, honestly, it's just a lot of fun. What are we going to be doing? We're going to be doing the skimming exercise from Proficiency 2, but from an external camera perspective. Once your ship is stabilized in front of you, relatively so, we're going to do a little test exercise to get the feel of this. All you're going to do is execute a quick up thrust, like I did just there, at the same time pulling back on the stick. Of course, since we're in flight assist off, all we need to do is pull back on the stick quick and let it go, and it will take care of the rest for us. It will continue on that rotation. Once you're ready to level out, gently give a pitch down, and then we're going to give a bit of forward thrust. Once you get to a certain point, the camera will follow you. Don't be afraid to accelerate to maximum speed. Basically, when your engines shut off, that's how you know that you're at max speed when you're in flight assist off. During this exercise, go ahead and play with the position of your craft. So your vector's not going to change if you have your engines off, or your primary engines at least off. So play around with yawing to the left, to the right, pitch your nose down and up, and see how it reacts differently. And see how your perception, most importantly, reacts differently. This might seem a bit like a party trick or a parlor trick, or maybe just a little bit of fun, and that's great, but it actually does have a purpose for training. This gives us a unique perspective of what our craft is doing when we give it inputs, and more importantly, it gives us a reference for what opponents' ships might be doing when they're executing their thrusters in certain ways. When you're in combat with flight assist off or with flight assist on, it's not uncommon to be able to put yourself subconsciously in that other pilot's seat for just a brief moment. When you're in that state, even if it's only for a fraction of a second, you're essentially evaluating what that pilot in that ship at that specific vector and that position can and cannot do, and what they're most likely to do. In this way, the camera suite gives us a tool to be able to evaluate and train ourselves to view our ship and what it's doing and what an opponent might be doing in that same ship or in that same position. That skill can be gained many different ways. This is just a way to sort of start that process in your mind. Most commanders gain that skill not through the external camera, of course, but through combat, and a lot of it. They get used to how ships react, the way they're pointed, their vectors, the positioning. Even if they're not thinking of it as a vector, they're still subconsciously getting used to that, and they start to react to that inherently. It's also kind of a handy tool because it requires you to pre-plan your route. If your vision goes away because the camera, as just happened there, if you've planned your route fine and you know your obstacles ahead of you and your position and your vector, you should be fine. In truth, you should be able to close your eyes for about 3 to 4 seconds while you're doing this exercise when you're close to the skimming surface. Once you're comfortable with this concept, try to find a smooth spot visually, or perhaps a depression like is coming up on the right side in front of me here. It's very important to find somewhere smooth because we don't have the assistance of the terrain analyzer when we're in this mode. Lower your gear, stabilize your craft, and land. Remember, you might have to push the landing down into the terrain to get it to stick. So that's just a creative use of the external camera that you can use to better your FA-off skills. And it leads us into our last exercise of the video, which happens to be our bonus exercise for this video. Now, you don't have to try this if you don't want. You don't have to do this, but I will say that if you've flown a model airplane before, this might be a little bit easier for you. Why is that? That's because we are going to turn our nose to face us, and we're going to do the exact same thing that we did. We're going to land stably and in control. Now, when your nose gets pointed towards you, what happens? All of the controls get reversed, aside from strafe up and strafe down. If you've done a lot of model airplane flying in your youth, you will remember this concept because this is what you needed to learn so that you wouldn't hit your parents while they were watching you fly. If you're trying this and you're starting to feel a little panicked at this point because you don't know what thruster does what, that's normal. It's okay. Just give a brief tap to one of the thrusters and record it in your mind. You're essentially rewriting in your head what your head thinks that the thrusters will accomplish. It's always good to try different ways to do the same things that we've been doing for so long. You know, I think there's probably quite a few uses for the external camera that haven't been discovered yet, and probably a lot of them have to do with training. So it's going to be kind of exciting over the next whatever time span that we have this tool to see what people come up with and to see what kind of materials people can create. Some of our commanders are already creating amazing video content with the external camera. I love watching YouTube videos of different artistic renditions of what people think Elite is to them. I have to take this time to give a massive shout out to all of you that have commented on the previous videos and on this video as well, and who have liked and subscribed. I do this purely out of the enjoyment of it. I get fuel from you guys coming in and saying, this helped, or I have this question, and then somebody else answers it, and et cetera, et cetera. It's just a great, it's a really great learning environment when that happens, and it makes it easier to get together all of this stuff and to do it and to put it all into a static video, an archive. When I started making these videos in this series, I just wanted to help maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people, and so seeing everyone come in and having the response that they did is really. I know I talk about this every video. I probably will talk about this every single video at the end, but it really, really, really is amazing to see that. So thank you. Within a couple weeks, I should have Proficiency 4 out, and then a couple weeks after that, I should have Proficiency 5 ready and published. And once that's finished, we will move on to intermediate stuff. And the intermediate videos are probably going to be short videos or shorter videos. They're not going to be 36 minutes, but they'll be shorter videos of one-shot exercises that are for specific purposes. Once those intermediate videos start, we're also going to intermix some advanced topics and advanced videos. Those are primarily going to be me hosting other commanders in the community so that they can talk about their experience with Flight Assist Off and how they learned and why it's important to them, and the specific exercises that they might do on a regular basis to own their skills. I'm going to leave you with one final thought that I had today while I was finishing up the recording for this video. I was thinking back on when I decided to fly wholly Flight Assist Off and the reasoning why I did that, or what it felt like rather. I think at that time I started to find inspiration in the game where I hadn't found it before. And it had to do with Flight Assist Off for me. You don't need to fly Flight Assist Off wholly to have that. So try to find inspiration in everything that you do, because I think that it really is the key to a great game experience. Thank you again, Commanders, and I'll see you next time.